Hi everyone, it's Nicole from Mama Elephant with an Animal Parade card to share with you. This features the new Animal Parade stamp set, but I also went through my Mama Elephant collection and pulled out some birds from the Tea with Friends stamp set because I thought they were very similar in design to the Animal Parade critters, and also a Rowdy raccoon on a little bicycle from that stamp set. The Rowdy Raccoons is a couple of years old, I believe, and Tea with Friends came out a few months ago, but it's really nice to mix and match. I've got two die cuts here. These are die cut rectangles using the largest of the new basic rectangles dies, and I die cut two of them. One is going to be my background that I'm going to add some sun rays to, and the other I am using Mama Elephant Grassy Trio dies to die cut two borders of grass. This is because when I'm doing a border along the bottom edge of my card like this, instead of tucking the critters underneath just one layer of grass, I really prefer two. It gives the illusion that they're just kind of trekking through this grass with their little parade, rather than laying up against the sunshine background. If you didn't have those two layers, to me, it just kind of grounds the whole thing a lot nicer. So I've got three white panels. I've got a background and two grass borders. Next, I'm going to go ahead and stamp everything. I did a lot of prep work and then actually did all of my inking and coloring all at once. You can see that I've stamped all the images I'm going to use from Animal Parade, Tea with Friends, and Rowdy Raccoon onto some Nina Smooth White cardstock using the Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink for Copic coloring, and I customized the banner with one of the greetings from Animal Parade. Now I want to ink this Tim Holtz Raise stencil. You guys probably have seen me use this before. I love this stencil. I want to ink this onto my background paper. I think I forgot to mention that my background and both borders were die cut from Bristol Smooth cardstock. This is going to give me such a better base for inking. It blends so beautifully. And I started to put my stencil in place, but decided to go ahead and ink up my entire background with Squeezed Lemonade Distress Oxide ink first. Then I will replace my stencil, and then I'm going to take a little Wild Honey Distress Oxide ink, and starting pretty light, I'm going to pounce that, concentrating it down near the center of the rays and lightening it as I get out a little closer to the edges of the card. And I'm going to just work up that intensity, kind of keep pouncing it. You can see I'm pouncing it rather than really blending it hard into the stencil. This is going to give me much more defined rays than if I would try to kind of ink it traditionally. So I just popped that up to see how I liked it, and I decided I need a little more Wild Honey out near the edges. That looks better. I'll go ahead and remove my stencil. My grass borders will cover up that little spot down near the bottom. I did spritz the background with water from a distress sprayer to add additional distressing, and I'm going to let that water wick away. The Distress Oxide inks are going to react with the water, creating some light oxidized spots. Next, I'm going to take Lucky Clover Distress Oxide ink, and I'm going to ink up my two grassy borders, concentrating the majority of the darkest ink towards those grass blades and then lightening as I get down towards the bottom. The background border, I didn't even bother inking the whole way because it's going to be hidden behind the border in the front. I am not going to add additional distressing to either of these borders with the distress sprayer or water or anything like that. Instead, I want to leave those pretty clean and inked. However, they do have a little bit of that ombre effect from dark to light. And that can be achieved with just one ink, or you could mix a couple of inks if you wanted to. Now I'm going to take all of my cute little images and start coloring those in. So the coloring here, I'm going to speed through just a little bit. I left it in for you guys to see. However, I sped it up so we could get through the video a little bit quicker since coloring does take a little bit of time. We're going to start with the bear from Animal Parade, coloring him in with E43, 44, and 47 with R00 for the insides of his ears. He is such a cute little guy. What I love to do when mixing and matching critters is I like to go through my collection, in this case Mama Elephant, so that they do have a similar design. However, within Mama Elephant, there are different styles of critters. So I went through and tried to find critters that matched the style of Animal Parade because I really wanted to fill in my border, and I felt like I needed one more pretty good sized critter, and the Rowdy raccoon on the trike fit perfectly. I thought he really matched in scale and in style. The same goes for the two birds with tea with friends. They really match as well. In fact, bunnies from that stamp set and several other recent stamp sets would also work if you wanted to do more of a long skinny card and you needed even more critters to fill in. I think that would be cute too. Another thing to keep in mind is this little bear is marching off, in fact, all the critters, the bear, the fox, the mouse, and the penguin, they're all kind of marching off into the right side of the card. So you don't want to pick another critter that's facing left. So when I go through my collection looking for images, that's kind of the criteria I was looking for this particular card design. The banner was G00, G02 and G16. The pole is orange colors in YR01 and 04. For my fox, I'm using E30, 31, 35, 37, and then R00 for the insides of the ear. And I started with the light portions of my fox, and then I'll move on to the darker areas. And you can choose to do these in any color that you wish. I picked some of my favorite color combinations for this card today. I also chose to go with a little bit more of a non-traditional color palette route. As far as I didn't use deep red or deep blue primary colors, I guess. I went more of a pastel route. So kind of a bright yellow-orange background, a really fun green border, and I kind of matched that green with my Copic marker choices, and then from there I chose the peachy pinks or peachy reds, kind of a lighter orange yellows, aquas, a lilac color for all of this coloring. I do want to mention those little balls that are in the arc. There is not a coordinating die for that, and I did not realize it when I stamped it. So while I'm coloring these here, I actually did not cut those out. What I ended up doing was stamping them directly on the background and coloring over my sunshine background to add these little balls that the penguin is juggling while balancing on his little beach ball. All of these colors are shown across the top of the screen for easy reference. And I tried to color anything that was kind of more bright colors all at once. The birds are BG 11 and 13 with Y11 for the tummy and YR04 for the beak on the one bird that needed colored in. Kept that really simple as well, little R00 for the cheek. The mouse, going to be some light warm grays. Pretty much warm grays are going to be used for the rest of the critters in varying degrees and colors. So the mouse is going to stay pretty light on the light end of the spectrum with warm gray 0, 0, 1, 3, and 4, or 3 or 4. I'm not exactly sure which one I used there. And then I colored in his party hat with bright colors. The raccoon is going to have a darker mask, but I don't want to go so dark you can't see his face. So I tend to err on the lighter side. But the darkest we're going to go here is warm gray 7 and a lot of warm gray 4. For his tail, we'll lighten it up even more with a little warm gray 1 and 3. But otherwise, very, very much the same color palette. And then even when we go over to the penguin, that's going to be all warm grays with the lighter areas being on that lighter end of the spectrum, but the darkest color going to be warm gray 7 again. Now the trike he's riding, I felt like needed a pop of color. Lots of neutrals in my critter color choices. I tend to go more realistic, even for these cutesy type of critters. That's just what I tend to gravitate towards as far as color choices. You could obviously color these little guys in any color you wanted to, but because I tend to go with neutrals, grays, browns, I like to add pops of color, especially with that yellow background and the green border. So for his trike, I did a combination of that peachy red and some oranges. So it's colorful and you can definitely still see what it is, even when it's tucked in between those two borders of grass on my card. For the penguin, we're going to go light here for his tummy and face with warm grays 0, 0, and 1. A little YR01 and 04 for his beak and his feet. And then, of course, the darker colors for the rest of him with warm gray 7. He is so cute. I love little penguins like this. I love all of the critters, but that little penguin just looks so cute and happy, doesn't he? And then a little R00 for his cheeks to pinken those up just a little bit. Then I am going to die cut all of my critters with the coordinating Animal Parade, Tea with Friends, and Rowdy Raccoon dies. We're adhering the two borders now on the background. So we've got that beautiful sunshiny background, we've got the blades of grass, and before I add my critters, I really do need to stamp my sentiment, the rest of my sentiment for my card. The first part of my sentiment I stamped onto that banner which says hip hip hooray, and I've set my rest of my greeting from Animal Parade to the side. I'm always anxious to see if it works out the way I think it's going to in my head. You probably noticed at the beginning of the video, I laid out my stamps on my craft mat, kind of positioning where I wanted them to go. It gives me a good base, a good start, and a good guideline to know if it's going to fit within my A2 sized card base. But I'm always anxious to see it actually come to life with the actual images. And I think this works well. Now, I needed to lay these out also because I need to stamp those balls that the penguin is juggling, and I need to make sure that I get them placed in exactly the right place. Not only that, there are music notes from Animal Parade that I want to add as well. And then the rest of my greeting that I chose from the stamp set, there's several different ones, but I chose This Calls for a Celebration. And I want to stamp that along the bottom edge of the grass. So I'm going to grab my mini Misty and pop this in place. I've not attached any of the elements yet. I'm using them as a guide so that I know where everything is going to fit as far as space on my card. And I'm going to start by picking up those little balls that the penguin's juggling and my greeting. I'm going to ink these up with that jet black ink again. I use the jet black ink here because I need to color in the balls and I didn't want the ink to bleed or run. And I already had this ink out, but using the Misty allows me to stamp it a couple times so I get a really good stamped impression for both the greeting and the image. And then I'll color those in really quick. And now I need to add the music notes. And I left the coloring of those out because it's simply the same thing that I did before. There just isn't a coordinating die for that. So now I'm going to pick up my music notes with my Misty and do the same thing. I'm going to stamp those with the jet black ink, color those in with Copic markers in some of the brighter colors like I used for the balls that the critters are balancing on, or the drum or the trike. We'll color those in and then we can start attaching everything to the card. And I think I maybe waited and colored those last. So I need to position my bear holding the banner so that it doesn't cover up those music notes. I purposely kind of position those around that. And then one of the little birds from Tea with Friends is going to be sitting on top of that banner. He's so cute. I love those little birds. And then we've got the fox that's drumming. And we'll go ahead and tuck him in between the two blades of grass next. The little mouse balancing on his ball with his party hat. And then we've got our raccoon on his trike. And then we'll finish up our little Animal Parade with the beach ball and the penguin bringing up the rear. And we also have one additional bird that's just kind of flying along in this animal parade. So cute and fun. I think anyone would love to get a card like this. It's just makes you smile when you look at it. I love mixing and matching my stamps. You guys probably, if you followed me, you know that that's one of my very favorite things to do, and this card was a great example of that. I'm going to take a black glaze pen now and add detail to the tips of the noses on my critters. Or eyes, kind of just depends on the animal. Some white, and I'm using a white opaque pen to add some little dots to some of the cheeks on my critters as well. And then we'll color in those music notes really quick. And finally finish with glossy accents on these balls and on the raccoon's nose and the penguin's nose. I do want to mention Copic colors do not work that, Copic markers do not work that great on Bristol Smooth cardstock, so I wouldn't really recommend using those for a lot of coloring, but for the music notes and balls, it worked fine. Thanks for joining me today for this Animal Parade card featuring Mama Elephant stamps and dies. The supplies I used to create my card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more cards featuring Mama Elephant that you might be interested in. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.